I could talk here about several cases. I would just tell you 3 or 4 about the worst things that happened in Brazil. As Congressman Bia Kicis said, a former teacher of 71 years old, Miss Iraci Nagoshi, who had never set a foot in the police station, being sentenced to 14 years in prison for allegedly participation in January 8 vandalism. I would like to highlight here that January 8, it was pretty much what you saw in January 6 in the United States. But the Brazilians that are now in jail, sometimes they were even not in the place where happened all of that. I have to tell you that some people that are taking now 15, 16, 7 years jail sentenced, they were camped kilometers, like 8 or 9 kilometers far away from the 3-power square where stays the presidents of the Republic, the Congress, and the Supreme Court. Also, Gustavo Gayer and also Bia Kicis talked about Clériston Pereira da Cunha, nicknamed Clezão, who died in prison after waited for months to be released from prison, even with the legal opinion of the DA. So the DA said, this guy is sickness. He has a very hard sickness. He would go back to home, answer the court, but at home, not in prison, because he's going to die. And now he's dead. Isn't it a human rights crime? I also could talk here about the arrest of the Congressman Daniel Silveira. This is one of the most horrible things. Sentenced by the Supreme Court to almost 9 years in jail for having made a video criticizing justice from the Supreme Court. Daniel Silveira received a presidential pardon from President Bolsonaro. Listen, this congressman was in jail. President Bolsonaro, at that time, he was president, Ms. Gall. He said, here's the presidential pardon. And we saw, Julia Zanata, in several cases, drug dealers, murderers, all the bad kind of people receiving this kind of thing from presidents. Always they went back home. But Daniel Silveira, when Jair Bolsonaro did not get reelected, the Supreme Court overturned the presidential pardon for the first time in the history of Brazil. And now, this guy, a congressman just like me, Bia Kicis, Gustavo Gayer, Ricardo Salles, Polon, Julia Zanata, now he's in jail because of video, okay? Because of video. There is also the journalist Alan dos Santos, who Alexandre de Moraes tried to extradite, but was refused by the American authorities, who understood that the accusations against the journalist were not crimes, but mere opinions. After this, Alexandre de Moraes canceled not only Alan dos Santos' Brazilian passport, as well as that other journalists critical of the Supreme Court, such as Paulo Figueiredo and Rodrigo Constantino. At least Paulo Figueiredo says he was never even named in the process to be able to defend himself. I know it's crazy. No? Today, all these journalists live in the United States. So, Alexandre de Moraes canceled his passport, and he's like, what did I receive at home, like saying that I have a process in the court? Nothing. Talking about journalists, we have here a European journalist, Sérgio Tavares, who was detained in the São Paulo airport when was arriving to cover a Brazilian protest in favor of Jair Bolsonaro. And the federal police, when detained Mr. Sérgio Tavares, asked him about vaccines, about his opinions in the Supreme Court. But coincidentally, he interviewed President Bolsonaro 2 weeks before. Is it a democracy? In your countries, do sometimes journalists go there to cover some facts and the federal police stop them in the airport? Oh, I would like to know your opinion about vaccines. What's your opinion about this justice of the Supreme Court? We are not far away from Venezuela. And it took us, what? Less than 2 years? Lula da Silva administration, they have 1.5 years now. In less than 2 years, this is my country. And it reminds me, Gayer, when I talk with our Venezuelan friends, They always warned us, as very good words used here by Mr. Bouchardet. Be careful. We never imagined, Ricardo Salles, that it would happen with Venezuela, and it happened. Yesterday was Venezuela. Today is happening in Brazil. Maybe tomorrow in Spain, in Netherlands, in Portugal. I don't know. Going on about the Twitter, this mission to bring light to the events taking place in Brazil occurs at the exact moment that the Twitter Files Brazil scandal comes to light. I would like to highlight 2 points before of all. First thing is, Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter, current X, bought Twitter in October of 2022, during the Brazil's electoral period. So what we are talking here about Elon Musk and Twitter, these things happened during the Brazil election time. Second thing, Alexandre de Moraes, the Supreme Court Justice, he held the position not only to be Justice of the Supreme Court, but also the President of the Superior Electoral Court, which is the body that administrates and judges everything related to the elections in Brazil. In a recent statement, Elon Musk said that Minister Alexandre de Moraes ordered Twitter to block profiles, include those of parliamentarians, without even the right to contradict or broad defense. And he instructed, as Ms. Biakis here said, he instructed Twitter to do not inform the blocked users that the order came from him. What else can I talk about this? I'll be very honest with you. Elon Musk has to prove what he's talking. And the other congressman, Nicolas Ferreira, the most voted ever congressman in the last election, he asked by Twitter using X, Mr. Eduardo Kader, Elon Musk, could you please provide us more information about what you're talking about? Do you know his answer? I'll do that. But first, I have to take out from Brazil my employees because they are threatened to go to jail. This is very serious. Elon Musk, please, he's not like a Bolsonarist, as part of the media of Brazil is talking now, the Bolsonarist Elon Musk. Or even the Trumpist, because he said by his own that in a couple of years ago, he was used to vote in the Democratic Party. I mean, left wing. So this is not someone from our bubble. This is not someone like a regular guy. He's the most, or one of the most, the richest men in the world talking about it. In response to Musk's recent statements, Alexandre de Moraes decreed a fine of around 17,000 euros per day per each profile that Twitter unblocks. The legacy media in Brazil calls those who unblock profiles as anti-democrats, while the authority that silence people on the internet as the bastions of democracy. This narrative no longer stands up, and things get even worse when you analyze the reasons why these profiles were blocked. The intention is to crush opposition to Lula in Brazil through the unconstitutional use of the Supreme Court.